Perfect. Good morning, bonjour. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning, and we're all excited about the beginning of this new session. And one of the reasons that I'm really excited is that I'm here with two new members, Andrea Hazel and Karen McCrimmon, who all have the honor and privilege, along with Lucille, who's not here right now, to walk in so they can take their seat in the legislature. And so I want to say a little bit about both of them because it's their first day here, first day at school, so to speak. So Andrea is the member for Scarborough-Guildwood, and she's continuing the history of a strong woman representing the riding of Scarborough-Guildwood. She brings with her a wealth of experience in business, in community development, and she has the Critic roles for transportation, women's social and economic opportunity, and infrastructure. And I know she's going to do a great job. And Karen McCrimmon, she's the member for Kanata-Carleton. And Karen brings with her a wealth of experience. 6 years in the House of Commons, a distinguished career in the Canadian military. As one of my former colleagues said, just look her up on Wikipedia, and you'll see some very interesting things there that I don't have time to mention today. But the one that's really stands out for me is Karen won in a by-election in a riding that's never been held by anyone else other than a Conservative for more than a century. And so we're very proud of that. And Karen's going to be taking care of, or the Critic for Solicitor General, long-term care, and intergovernmental affairs. So I know she's going to do a great job at that. So we shuffled around the Critic roles a little bit because we have two new members. And when we were doing that, and you can take, if you have any questions about that later on, some of the new Critics are here. We created two new Critic roles. The first one is for the Premier's Office and Accountability. And the reason that we have that as a new Critic role is there's a problem. It's not just about the Greenbelt. It's about how the Premier does business in this province. It's about what's happening with ministerial zoning orders, urban boundaries, Highway 413. Who's benefiting most from the changes that the Premier is trying to make in healthcare, putting more profit into our healthcare system, putting profits ahead of patients. So it is a new role. I took that role. When you're the leader, you get the chance to take that role on because I think it's important. I think it's important that we, the Greenbelt's just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's what we see. And, the interesting thing over the last couple of months is, every week there's some more news. Every week there's something else. And what's at the core of it is that the interest of a few wealthy, well-connected insiders are getting a jump on the rest of us, on the rest of Ontarians. And so, it's not just about this $8.3 billion backroom deal. There's more. And I think we have to get to the bottom of this. The second is children's health. And the reason that we felt that would be a good thing to do is there are particular problems right now with children's health and wait times. And there have always been persistent problems with transitions as children transition out of pediatric care. The thing that's really most important to remember in our healthcare system is children are different from adults. Their procedures sometimes take longer. The drugs aren't always evaluated for them. And so those are the reasons that we created, that's the reason that we created that role. So we're looking forward to the next session. La prochaine session, c'est beaucoup de feux d'artifice aujourd'hui. Et nous travaillons fort pour maintenir le pied de Premier à le feu. And I'll take your questions.
John, at the beginning of September, there was a cabinet shuffle. You complained that there was no Ottawa members or Eastern Ontario members. Now there's been another one. Do you still have the same complaints?
3 cabinet ministers have gone in the last month. I've been around a long time. I have never seen that. And there's not one cabinet minister in Eastern Ontario, not just to Ottawa. It's incredible. And they have three members actually there. Actually, four that are kind of close. You know, you have John Jordan, you have Stéphane Sarrazin, right? Goldie Gamari, and Lisa MacLeod. And I've said this before, you know, Lisa and I disagree all the time. But one thing I would say is that I never doubted that Lisa, you know, would stand up for Ottawa. I may not agree with her. But there's nobody around the table. It's incredible. Not even somebody who's on the periphery of Ottawa. We're 1.1 million people. It's not a surprise because the government's in a bit of disarray. But it seems to be consistent with this premier that he ignores the interests of Ottawa. And whether it be during the occupation of Ottawa, whether it be his comments around things like light rail, I used to wonder whether he thought Ottawa was like a federal district.
So, John, the Premier has already backed down from everything to do with the Greenbelt dynamic situation. So now that that's already happened, I mean, what's next for you? What will you be demanding of the government this week in question period?
Well, look, accountability. Well, first off, you know, as somebody said to me this morning, it was one of my NDP colleagues, he says, you know, it's like, yeah, I took your car and I did try to sell it, but I just put it back in your laneway. It's like, I think there's still a problem there, right? So the Greenbelt, what about the municipal boundaries in Ottawa and Hamilton? I mean, there's some serious problems there. What about, you know, the MZOs across this province that are questionable? Right? What about Highway 413 and the map and who owns all that land on Highway 413, that highway that we're going to spend billions on that the government doesn't want to tell us about? So what about who's really the winner when it comes to more for-profit in healthcare and the expansion of for-profit clinics and the expansion of, you know, the use of a credit card in our healthcare system? Those are all the things that, you know, that's the reason why we put Premier's office in accountability. Because in all of this stuff, all roads lead to the Premier's office. And that's where we're going to get resolution to these things.
Juste une question en français à Stéphane ou à Ted. Qu'est-ce que vous attendez de la part du gouvernement, puis qu'est-ce que vous réclamez de la part du gouvernement pour la reprise des travaux parlementaires au cours des prochaines semaines?
Pour la quoi?
Pour les prochaines semaines, les prochains
mois. Comme John a dit, on va continuer sur les questions de l'intégrité de le gouvernement. On a vu à Ottawa, particulièrement avec l'expansion des frontières urbaines, une compagnie appelée Verde Alliance a eu une expansion de 37 acres après des dons de à peu près 12 000 $. La ville a déclaré ses terrains agricoles et à cause de ça, pas ouverte pour le développement. Et puis après ces dons et après l'achat par cette compagnie avec des liens avec le Parti conservateur, le ministre Clark a changé les désignations pour s'assurer que les maisons peuvent être construites sur ces terrains agricoles. On a vu aussi une expansion de la même frontière à Hamilton, par exemple, et avec tous les ordres de zonage que le ministre a fait les dernières quelques années. Donc, je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de dossiers encore qui besoin d'une investigation plus intense qu'on a vu les dernières 2 ans avec les questions dans la législature. C'est la raison où j'ai déjà demandé à la vérificateur générale pour regarder la situation en Ottawa et on va continuer en cette direction.
Est-ce que vous vous sentez quand même galvanisé parce qu'il y a eu cette victoire, la ceinture de verdure, vous avez 2 nouvelles députées. Est-ce que ça redonne un peu d'énergie en tant que parti d'opposition? Bien,
absolument. Je pense qu'il y a beaucoup d'optimisme avec notre groupe ici à Queen's Park et aussi avec nos bénévoles et nos supporters dans le Parti libéral. On a eu 2 victoires énormes avec Karen et Andrea et on a beaucoup de momentum avec notre processus de leadership. Il y a des autres partis qui n'ont pas eu un processus de leadership. Ils ont offrir le poste à une reine et on a une élection très compétitive avec cinq individus avec beaucoup de talent et qui peuvent être notre chef dans la prochaine élection. Et on a comme 8 semaines, je pense, juste à la vote et la convention. Et je pense que cette énergie va continuer dans chaque coin d'Ontario.
There's going to be a mass protest outside the legislature at noon today about healthcare privatization. Do you see this being the next issue that is you're going to be pushing for a reversal on in this session?
Yes, because for two reasons. Number one is pitting patients against shareholders, putting profit in the mix is not going to improve care. You can't serve two masters. We have a great publicly funded healthcare system, and that's the way we need to keep it. And we should be working with it, not trying to take away from it. And if you look at another example of privatization that we have been talking about a lot over the summer, we did, in the last session, it's the temp agencies. It's the healthcare agencies providing temporary nursing, temporary PSWs, and the amount of profit and the amount of costs that are in the Ontario healthcare system, because this is being allowed to happen. It is absolutely incredible. There was one long-term care home that used to spend about $300,000 a year, so by Kitchener-Waterloo, $300,000 a year for temporary agencies, because sometimes you need somebody's sick, you have to replace somebody. Last year, $3 million. Ask any hospital executive. It's absolutely incredible. And you know what? Here's the problem. Someone's making a lot of money off that. A lot of money. And in some cases, there's gouging. So, yeah, it's right that we're having the protest out there. It's right that we're having the protest out there. So I think, all of the things I think that we'll talk about in this session will relate to the way that Premier Ford does business. And his pathology is, what he does is, he puts the interests of well-connected insiders and friends ahead of the rest of us. And Ontarians don't deserve that. And so we're going to continue to fight. It's not just questions in the legislature. It'll be questions at committee. It'll be using the legislative officers any way that we can to keep shining a light on the things in this government that are wrong and aren't in the best interest of Ontarians.
It's not going to be the only protest this week, though. Some First Nations chiefs from Niskandiga and Grassy Narrows are going to be setting up a table outside tomorrow and waiting for Premier Ford to come down there and sit and talk with them. I'm just wondering if you think the Premier should do that, and if he should, was that something Premier Wynne or Dalton McGuinty would have done? Just sit at a table out in front of Queen's Park?
I think they're making a point. He won't meet with them. And he should. That's his job. That's all of our jobs. When someone in Ontario would like to have a meeting, would like to discuss things that are, especially those who are representing a community, want to come and see us about things that are going on in their community and what needs to be done, we should be there. We shouldn't ignore them. The point they're making is they're trying to show everybody he's not even going to meet with us in his office or in the hallway. Look, the premiers that I've worked under and worked for, their ethos was that we have to listen to the people. Premier Ford, he doesn't want to listen to the people when it's inconvenient for him.
The chief of Caldwell First Nation, Mary Duckworth, is calling on Greg Rickford to resign because he didn't meet with her in Queen's Park. Do you agree? And he arranged a meeting off-site instead, and she thinks that's disrespectful. Do you think that's enough reason for the Indigenous Affairs Minister to resign?
Well, look, I think it would have been good for the minister to have met with her here at Queen's Park. You know, when we look at reasons for the ministers to resign, I think we've seen some pretty good reasons over the last couple of months. You know, I would, you know, if that's, I think it's an important symbol, and I think it's one that Minister Rickford can correct or make right, and he should do that. That's simple. It's not that hard. There's lots of spaces in this building, and it's important. It has significance. It's you know the relationship we have with First Nations is government to government. So I can see why the chief would be really angry, and when you couple that with the Premier's approach to First Nations, Métis and Inuit, I can understand why they're not happy. Great. Thanks very much.